Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining. I am Edward Temten Mirza of the NAMC Institute of Zoroastrian Studies. And thank you for joining us for our monthly discussion group, Zoroastrianism Outside the Box, hosted by the NAMC Institute of Zoroastrian Studies. The North American Morbid Council is a not-for-profit organization dedicated to serving the religious and spiritual needs of the North American Zoroastrian community. The NAMC Institute of Zoroastrian Studies is an educational arm of the NAMC with the objective to train Morbids and impart knowledge of Zoroastrianism to fellow Zoroastrians and to community at large. So this event is facilitated by the North American Morbid Council's NAMC Institute of Zoroastrian Studies to promote knowledge through free but respectful discussion and debate. The views and opinions expressed during the discussions are those of the presenter and the participants and do not reflect the official policy and positions of the North American Morbid Council. So during the presentation, we encourage you, the participants, to ask questions, engage in discussions, or share your views on the topic. The easiest and best way to do that is to use the raise hand emoji or post a question in the chat feature. So following a brief talk by the presenter, we will open the floor for discussion with the presenter. And throughout the event, we encourage you to please be respectful of the views of others. And now a few words about the presenter today, Dr. Percy Avari. He is the Vice President of Surgical and Medical Research Program, the Eye Vet and Cancer Vet Erskine Assistant Professor, Poultry Department, Mumbai Veterinary College. He is a poultry industry professional with 15 plus years of academic experience in teaching, research, and extension in poultry. He has co-authored 28 publications in journals of national and international repute, and he has successfully mentored students, and he is an environmentalist at heart and works passionately towards the vulture conservation for the last 20 years. He has a list of awards and accolades, and he is affiliated to several organizations. So with that, I will hand it over to Percy. Take it away, Percy.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning to people in America. Good evening to people in India and wherever you are. Thank you so much for joining today. I also understand that it is a very crucial day today. India is playing New Zealand in the finals of the Champions Trophy. So the attendance might be a bit lacking, but still I'm fairly pleased to see the number of people who have joined. So before I start, so the topic for today is the role of vultures in Zoroastrian ecology. I have been told that I can speak for 35 to 40 minutes, if that is correct.
Yeah, yes? That's perfect.
Yeah, so I shall try and stay with the time. So before I start any talk on vultures, this is the warning that I provide to the listeners that I love talking about vultures and I can start talking and keep on talking about vultures for a long time, but I will try and constrict it till 35 to 40 minutes. So what we will be talking about today is basically, this is a slightly new topic for me also. I'm not an expert on religion. So I would request people to bear with me, and I'm happy to learn more about it from stalwarts who are present here. So what I'm trying to do today is we are going to talk about vultures and the relationships of vultures and humans. What are the roles that vultures have played and continue to play in human cultures? Then we will talk about sky burials. We will talk about Zoroastrians and vultures. Then I will talk about Tibetan sky burials as well. Then I would like to focus some part which is very, very important and crucial about the adaptations of vultures, their decline, and their importance in One Health. I shall also explain about what is One Health and take it ahead from there. So to begin with, when we look at vultures and human relationships, it is a very long-standing relationship. The literature says that we have been in a relationship for nearly 3 million years. So even the before the Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, the precursors to the human beings, they have been taking the help of vultures by looking at their soaring behavior and assuming that there is a carcass which is lying down there, a dead animal, and they would go and take the benefit of that. So that is how the carnivorous diet also is supposedly started for the uh, human beings. Uh, this was also helpful in for the developing brain. So more protein and fat was something that was required and essential for the growth of the brain as well and the development. Then uh, by using these food signals, they would go and reach out to the carcass, as I mentioned earlier. This also helped for the humans to migrate from Africa to other places, unknown places, because they had a surety of finding food. So the earlier hunter-gatherer relationship or the methodology that people used for procuring food, that was utilized very well. And it is also postulated that cooking or the use of fire, earlier it was only probably used for warmth and for light, but the Homo erectus saw the vultures consuming the carcasses which were burnt in bushfires, and when they also took the those kind of meat, then they found benefit in that, and they started cooking the food as well, is what is postulated. Moving to the newer age thing, when we look at vultures in human cultures, one of the most important things that we everyone knows about is in India, the legend of Jatayu, the vulture god, which who tried to protect Sita from being abducted by Ravan and lost his life. However, there are other examples of vultures in Indian culture as well. So there is Gridharaj Parvat in MP, that is Madhya Pradesh, where Sampati was born. Now, Sampati is the elder brother of Jatayu, and it is said that Sampati and Jatayu were flying at one point of time, and they were racing of sorts. And Jatayu started, overtaking Sampati and was going closer to the sun. And he was nearly singed by that. To protect him, his elder brother overtook him, and in the process, he lost his life in protecting Jatayu. Then there is another example of the Hill of Vultures, which is in Rajgarh, Bihar, and that is estimated to be the place where Buddha returned after enlightenment. Then in south, we have the place called Hill of Sacred Vultures. You can see the picture on the left where two Egyptian vultures are being fed by the Pandit. And what is considered is that there were two sages that were cursed by Lord Shiva, and they were transformed into vultures. And for many years, the people used to feed these Egyptian vultures, thinking that they are these sages. So that is about India. When we look at references of other human cultures as well, so in Persia, the vultures were given royal status because of their size and elegant gliding flight. In Rome, they were given importance for as like military strength. In Africa, it is considered that they have magical and mystical properties like clairvoyance. That is something that works against the vultures, because many people kill vultures to try and win bets, especially when they bet in sports or in other gambling methods. So in the Greek thought process, it is considered as a symbol of transformation because it converts the dead and takes them into the next life. In Egypt, Nekbet, the white vulture goddess, is considered to be a protector and mother of mothers. So Nekbet has various shapes and forms. So she can be in the shape of a cobra also, but when she is in the form of a vulture, then and when she spreads her wings, she is protecting the people. Then, last but not the least, there are many other cultures, but I'm going to restrict it to this particular topic up till here. So, in pre-Columbian and Mayan people, they were considered to for highness and brightness, transformer of death, and they were also related to agriculture. And you can see over here the shaman is created with the in gold with a figurine of a vulture. So that is as far as vultures and human culture is concerned. Then we come to the topic of sky burial. So these are very, very ancient, some 7000 BCE in Turkey, Catalhuyuk, Göbekli, and even Baya in California, in Mexico. So there are these figurines that have, or these paintings on the caves that depict a headless human, and the vultures are coming and possibly feeding on them. So it was thought of that there is also a figure of a person waving a stick or something like that. And earlier it was considered that that person was trying to shoo away the vultures. However, now it is considered that that is a person who is attracting the vultures to come and feed on the corpses. And then when the corpse was cleaned, as you can see in this particular photograph, then the corpse, the remaining bones would be buried and kept over there. And there are vulture skulls also which have been found in the walls of these caves. So I hope that I'm going at a good pace. It's not too fast, not too slow. If there are any comments, do let me know. So when we talk about vultures and Zoroastrians, uh, so Zoroastrianism, death is not considered as an act of God. So death is considered as a temporary victory of the evil, which is sometimes termed as Angremainyu, over good, which is Pentamainyu. Now the body which is left behind is impure. It is called as Naso, and the natural elements are considered to be pure. So this is the ideology behind death in Zoroastrianism, as much as I understand. Then to look at some of the terminologies, so I have come across two, and what I have referred to in scientific articles, this is what it says. So there are two terms. One is Khurshid Nigarishni, and another one is Dokhmanashin. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. So when we talk about Khurshid Nigarishni, it's about exposure of a corpse to open air in order to disintegrate the flesh and or to be fed upon by scavenging animals and birds. So this is a reference which says that yes, the corpses were supposed to be fed upon by scavengers like animals and mostly by birds, because when we look at the design of the dogma, it's designed in a way wherein the avian scavengers can come, whereas the mammalian scavengers or land scavengers can hardly enter and venture inside. Then there is another concept of Dokhmanashini, or a term called Dokhmanashini, which means, what I understand, is to maintain the purity of the three elements, that is fire, earth, and water. So the ideology is that the naso, the dead body, if we put it into earth, earth becomes impure. If we put it in water, water becomes impure. And if we put it in fire, fire also becomes impure. Then the ideology extends to the point that human life is sacred. And the method of Khurshid Nigrishni is for the betterment and welfare of the living. So it is not only to look at the disposal of the dead, but also make sure that the living are taken care of. So this is a very quick disposal of the corpse. When we talk about the biology and adaptations of vultures, I will dwell more upon this. And it helps in elimination of the spread of the disease, especially when vultures are consuming the corpse. And it also helps prevention of the pollution of the elements. So I tried to look at some history, and the first evidence of dogmas, according to one article that I was referring to, says that it comes from the Iron Age, which is around 1200 BC to 550 BC. However, in India, the first dogma was found in rural Gujarat, probably when the Zoroastrians landed in Sanjan and they dispersed over there. They built a dogma in the early or in the 1300s. And in Mumbai, the dogma, the permission for the dogma was applied for in, I think, around 1669. And it started functioning in 1657 at Malabar Hill. Now we have to understand that at that point of time, there were hyenas, leopards present at Malabar Hill. It was a forest. And that's where the towers of silence were built. Now, just I don't want to make it more about the Dakma and stuff, but this is something that is very important and critical, I think, that we need to know is that when in the process of Dakma construction, the Dakmas were predominantly circular. Sometimes they were rectangular and pentagonal or something like that as well, but very few. Predominantly, they were circular and they were always constructed and built at high places. Then the walls were high and uncovered, and the thickness of the wall was also reduced from the top for for stability. So they became thinner as they went towards the top. They were made of stone or cob without decorations, and there is only one entrance, and that is predominantly at the east. There are three concentric pavises. So the outermost is for the men, the middle for the women, and the central or the innermost for the children. They have an ossuary that is astodan, which is basically the central well wherein the bones are then deposited. And then there are drains with passages, as you can see on the sides, the four sides. So there are so these filter the contaminants, and it is made sure that nothing from the corpse contaminates the environment at all. And most importantly, these dakmas were always away from agricultural land. So it was always constructed on infertile land, and they were always away from the residential areas. So when we look at this picture is of one of the dakmas in Mumbai, and we can see the greenery around. And it is still a forest, but unfortunately, there are no leopards or deer or anything of that sort. There are a lot of peacocks there. I'm sure, I haven't seen snakes, but there must be a lot of snakes there, and a lot of other birds. Unfortunately, vultures don't visit there. But the point is that the Dakma has been working and functioning wonderfully well because of the presence inside the city, or rather than in the heart of the city, as the city grew around the towers of silence, predominantly because of the presence of the vultures. The vultures would very efficiently and quickly finish off the corpses and make sure that the smell or the disease or anything would not move ahead. So moving on. So when we look at the advantage of the system, so these are some of the advantages that Dastur Tabu has enlisted in the book Towers of Silence at Dungarwadi in Mumbai. So number one is charity. We are providing, even after death, we are providing food for the vultures and scavengers. Number two, as I mentioned, the speed. It is very quick process. A group of vultures can strip off a cow carcass to bones within minutes. The economy, so there is, it is very economical. There is no use of fuel or anything of that sort. It's very, very economical. It has a process of equality. So whether a person is from a rich family, poor family, whatever it is, everybody ends up in the same place after that. It's very hygienic because of the speed of the vultures as well, and because of the construction and the architecture of the dogma itself. And there is a lack of false sentimentality. So there is no tombstone, there is nothing which talks about, or there is no remnant of the individual after he or she dies. Then moving on to sky burials, we also look at uh, Tibetan rituals. So when I dug up some references, so Tibetans predominantly have the concept of returning to the body to one of the four elements. And in the meantime, they are also looking at nurturing the life forms. So when there is burial in the earth, the worms are being fed. When the corpse is put into water, it is considered that the fish and the other living beings in the water are going to consume the corpse, the flesh. When it is left to air, of course, the vultures are going to benefit from that. And when it is put into fire, the supernatural beings are being provided with nourishment. So this is the ideology that I can understand. Now, when we look at the practices and the principles, they are slightly different from the Zoroastrian way. So the body is taken to a high ground, which is very similar. Then there are corpse cutters, and these people supposedly chop off the parts of the body and they provide that to the vultures. So the idea is that they want the spirit to attain nirvana. So they want to ensure that nothing is left behind which can, hold the spirit back into this world. That's probably the idea. Then there is another a very non-popular idea which talks about it helps in ensuring that the dead body does not become into a zombie. Uh, then the body is completely, so they ensure that the body is completely consumed uh, and it is not reanimated by a demonic presence. So sometimes, as you can see in the photograph on the right, the bones are also sometimes crushed, hammered, and a powder is made, and they somehow mix it with something, and they make sure that the vultures consume that as well. So there are a lot of articles that talk about various things. I have not visited that. I don't have clarity about that. But the principles remain, which is impermanence. So its life is not permanent. It talks about mortality. It talks about compassion for other animals, giving body and food to other animals. Anatman, which means no self. So there is also an idea of non-attachment. So again, there is no, you know, tombstone or something like that. And it also deals with interdependence. So it's a dependence between the human body, the human self, and the environment and other beings inside. So that's the idea about the Tibetan sky burials. Then, because I also was looking at some of the scientific reasons, I'm not saying that all these reasons are not scientific, but they are predominantly religious. So some people also say that there are ecological factors which influence the sky burials. So if we look at the Tibetan plateau and also the Iranian plateau, so what we can see and observe is that there is a shortage of arable land, which means that the land is rocky, it cannot be dug up, and it will be difficult to build or dig graves and put the corpse inside the soil or land. Number one. Number two is because of the very sparse trees or non-existent trees over there. There is a shortage of fuel resources. So burning of the wood is actually kept for probably the living, and it is not utilized for the dead. There are articles which refute this claim as well. So I am not really certain about it, but this is something that is very, very important, I think, to be thought of and think about. So this is so until now, I was trying to throw light and talk about humans' interaction with vultures and the importance of vultures in religious ceremonies, especially in the last rites and the funeral processes. So now I'm going to move to talk about for the next 15 to 20 minutes. I think I have spent 20 minutes thus far. And the next 15 to 20 minutes, I would like to talk about the importance of vultures per se for human beings in general and for the environment in general. So when we talk about obligate vertebrate scavengers, so what is obligate scavengers? So obligate scavengers means those animals which do not consume any animal which is alive. That means that they will not kill or harm any live animal. They will only consume the dead animals, and that is what obligate vertebrate scavengers are. There are around 10,000 species of birds. There are around multiple species of mammals and reptiles. And when we look at the number of scavengers in obligate vertebrate scavengers in mammals and reptiles, there are none. So even though there are scavengers, they are not obligate scavengers, they are facultative scavengers. So if given a chance, they will hunt. Whereas when we look at the birds, the 22 species or slightly less than 22 species of vultures, but all the obligate vertebrate scavengers belong to the group of vultures. That is very, very important and critical. Now, when we look at obligate scavengers, what are the adaptations that are required? So number one, they need high displacement speed. That means that they should reach the dead animal quickly, and these vultures are known to do that. So the highest that a vulture has been known to fly is around 37,100 feet. That was a Ruppel's Griffin, and that can actually cross, that is higher than Mount Everest. Uh, they should have low locomotion cost. So when these vultures are flying, they are basically using thermals to rise in the air, and they can travel a distance of 160 kilometers a day. In search of food is what has been estimated in Africa. And recently there was a vulture which was released in Tadoba, and it was released with a satellite tag. And we found that before it was electrocuted, it had traveled a distance of more than 4,000 kilometers. So from Tadoba, it went to Gujarat, it went down to Karnataka, nearly till the tip of the bottom, nearly till Kanyakumari, and then it got electrocuted somewhere in Tamil Nadu. Then the rate of encounter and the resource energy demand should be corresponding. So these vultures, they are gregarious species. They live in a group, they move in a group, they help each other find carcasses, and they utilize that energy very efficiently. The ability of sensory detection of carcass should be high, which the vultures do have. They have a very keen sight. The metabolism should be low. So these are large-bodied birds with very, very low metabolism. That's how they can remain hungry they can go without food for nearly 15 to 20 days. They require a large body size to compete with other scavengers and other animals. So it is reported that the vultures can even displace a single jackal or even a cheetah uh, on the kill. However, the vultures predominantly, so 85% of the food that the vultures receive is from the animals which have died a natural death, not which have been killed by another animal. And they should process the carrion rapidly. So these vultures, they are very voracious eaters. So they can consume 1/3 of their body weight. So to put it in perspective, it's a 4.5 kilogram vulture can consume 1.5 kilogram of meat in a single setting within 15 minutes. That's as good as a 60 kilogram individual human being eating 20 kilograms of biryani in one sitting. Or for people who eat pizzas, it is equivalent of a 60 kilogram human being eating somewhere around 50 12-inch pizzas at one go. That is within 10 to 15 minutes. So that is the whole thing about it. So the salient features again, so I've spoken about it. So they are large-bodied birds. They belong, so the old world vultures, they are belong to a family of hawks, which is called Accipitridae. They are large-bodied birds. They are long-lived. Uh, they can live more than 40 years, I guess, but nobody studied vultures earlier in India. They are on top of the food chain and a very, very integral part of the ecosystem, which we will talk about very shortly. However, they breed only once a year and lay only one egg, and they attain sexual maturity at the age of more than 5, 6, maybe 7 years. And there are 9 species of vultures that are found in India. So they are very slow breeding birds, and that is what is to be noticed. So some of the other adaptations I would like to draw your attention to is that their feet, if you look at raptors, generally we see talons, so they are very, very strong because they are used for hunting. However, in the case of vultures, they are converted into feet like chicken, and that is used predominantly for walking on the ground and sitting or spending more time on the ground so that they can consume the carcasses. Then you can see the just below the neck on their chest region. These are not tumors, but this is a part of the esophagus, which even chicken have. It is called as a crop. So when the vultures consume the large amount of meat, what happens is that it is stored in the crop, and then this is utilized for a period of up to 72 hours. So everything does not enter into their stomach. It stays there in this sac, which is called as the crop. Then this is the many people think that this is how the vultures are. They are very gory, they are very untidy, they are very dirty. So the reason why they have a bald head and neck is predominantly that the fact that they are soft tissue feeders. So that means that they will go and enter. So they have a snake-like neck also, so they use that to enter into the body cavity and consume the internal organs as well as the muscles. And while doing so, their feathers, if they had feathers on the head and neck, they would hinder in the entry and exit from the body cavity, and that is why they have a bald head and neck. You can see that you can see or assume that it is frowning. So this supraorbital edge also or ledge that is formed later in life. So the bird which is a first year or second year bird will not have this, but as the bird ages, this gets formed. This is probably to protect the eye from the bones and other structures when the vulture enters into the body cavity. And another uh, good reason for this is that when the head is bald and the neck is devoid of feathers, the vultures love bathing. So after feeding, if they have the opportunity, they will have a wash. As you can see, the vultures are next to a water body in the picture on the right, and the bottom picture is of a white-backed vulture, an Indian white-backed vulture, and you can see the white back. of the vulture, and this particular posture of the vulture is called as sunning. So once the bird has had a bath, it will ideally go and sit on a perch, and it will spread its wing and allow the wings and the feathers to be dried with the help of the sun, which is called as sunning. It is similar to basking, which is done or carried out by reptiles. Then, when we look at flight, the vultures seem very clumsy on the ground, but once they take off, they are masters of the sky. They have a wonderful wingspan. So these gyp species of vultures, they have a wingspan of around 2 meters, which is nearly 6 feet. So, and they are absolutely gorgeous to look at when they are flying. I visited Nepal quite a few years ago, and I was paragliding over there, and I was thrilled to see vultures soaring around us and with us in the thermals. So that was a beautiful sight to look at. Then when we talk about breeding, as we said, they are very slow breeders. So they lay only one egg. So on the left-hand side, what you can see is a long-billed vulture. So the long-billed vultures nest on cliffs. On the extreme right, what you have is the white-backed vulture, and the white-backed vulture nests on the trees. So white-backed and slender-billed vultures. So white-backed, slender-billed, and long-billed vultures, these are the three vultures that are endemic to India, and they are found throughout. So the slender-billed is found north of the Gangetic Plain. The long-bills are found south of the Gangetic Plain. And in the middle, you can see the vulture chick that is available. This is a video that I would like to share. This is shared by my friend Sachin Ranade, who is the vulture conservation breeding center manager at Assam in Rani. So you can see this is the interior of what we call as a colony aviary. So this colony aviary is 20 feet high, 40 feet wide, and 100 feet long. And there are perches or these nesting regions are made available where the vultures, they lay eggs, and both of the male and the female, both of them take care of the young one. And you can see the small young one over there. So the bird, what it is doing is it is protecting it from the sunlight and making sure that it does not overheat. I would like to bring your attention to the vulture decline as well. So when we look at historic populations, this is a picture of a place called Timapur, which is in New Delhi. And this is 44 years old photograph. And you can see on the building, so some of the buildings are yet in construction stage. And you can see the vultures sitting in such large numbers that even a sparrow cannot, sit on those particular structures. So this is the volume of the vultures. We had around 40 million vultures at that time. However, if we look at the facts, 90% of the vultures in Africa and 99% of the vultures in the Indian subcontinent belong to the gyp species. The decline in gyps population was first scientifically reported by Dr. Vibhu Prakash. He wrote an article in the Journal of BNHS in 1999. And he said that in Kyola-Deo National Park, which was a protected area, 735 nests which were being monitored on a regular basis, there were no nests and there were no vultures present. So that was very alarming. The decline in Gyps bengalensis is to the tune of 99.7%, and Gyps indicus, that is long-billed vultures, is 97.4% during the decade of 1992 to 2003, such that the Gyps were considered common in 1996. Now, what do I mean by common? So when people like Rishad Nauroji and Dr. Vibhu Prakash, they would conduct raptor surveys year on year since 1970s. So when they were on a raptor survey, what would happen is that if the vultures were less than 5, they would not even count them before 1996. They were so common. However, in just 4 years, they went from being common to critically endangered on the brink of extinction. The impact was the historical population, which was around 40 million, nearly 39.96 million vultures. If we calculate 99% of the loss, then these vultures would be lost. And these vultures would have actually removed around 10.4 billion kilograms of meat every year. So that is the impact. What are the revival efforts? So it has been proven that diclofenac is the primary cause of the vulture decline. However, there are other NSAIDs which are non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. So the first thing is that we should ban unsafe NSAIDs. I am proud to say that India has banned diclofenac, ketoprofen, aceclofenac, and very recently nimesulide. However, there is one drug for sure, which is flunixin, which also kills vultures, and that is not yet banned. Then identification of safe non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs for the treatment of cattle and animals. So we have two as of now. One is called as meloxicam, and another one is called as tolfenamic acid. Then the third aspect was building vulture conservation breeding centers. So again, India is leading in that. India has around 800 vultures in captivity, and Pakistan, I think, has 37, and Bangladesh has, I think, less than 40, and Nepal has released all their vultures. So the fourth aspect, which is very critical, is creation of the vulture safe zones. So vulture safe zone is an area of 100-kilometer radius in which no harmful non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug is available for at least 2 years. Then only it is designated as a vulture safe zone. So these are the efforts that are being carried out in India. What I would at this point of time like to draw your attention, because I understand that this has been organized by the North American Morbids Council. People are more aware probably of the vultures in North America. So just to give you an idea, they are slightly different from the vultures in the old world. These are called as the new world vultures. But the most iconic and the best success story is about the California condors, from which the Indian scenario or the South Asian scenario has also learned a lot. So just to give you some idea, because of lead poisoning, these California condors went nearly extinct. There were only 23 individuals on the planet, including the vultures in captivity. That was in 1970s and 1980s. And now, because of the constant efforts, there are over 560 individuals on the planet, or more than that. What are the future threats to these birds? Number one is unsafe NSAIDs, not only in South Asia, but also in Southeast. There are thoughts and processes going on in Spain about introducing diclofenac and other things for treatment of cattle over there, which is very, very detrimental. Then intentional or accidental poisoning. So the picture on the bottom right that you see is about accidental poisoning of the vultures. So what happens is that a tiger or lion, leopard kills an animal, a livestock animal, and to get back to that particular predator, they put poison onto that carcass, hoping that the animal which has killed that particular cow, goat, or buffalo, whatever that is, and it will die. However, hundreds of vultures in Assam have met their death because of this particular accidental poisoning. In Africa, there is intentional poisoning. So when poachers kill an animal, the vultures start soaring over that animal, and the rangers, by looking at the vultures, can pinpoint where the poaching has occurred, and they reach over there and arrest the poachers. So in order to make sure that they don't get arrested, they poison that carcass so that the vultures, when they come down, they consume the carcass and they die immediately. Then electrocution is a very important problem that is surfacing. As I mentioned, one juvenile white-backed vulture died because of electrocution. Again, in Africa, use of body parts of vultures for witchcraft, which I have already told you about. Then what we foresee is food shortage, probably in Indian subcontinent, because now the cattle are being slaughtered or probably buried or something like that. They are not left out in the open. And what I have been looking at, the latest news coming from the US is that the new government has probably, stopped the ban on or lifted the ban on lead pellets and bullets. So if that happens and people start hunting animals with lead bullets, then in all probability it might be a very difficult thing for the California condors, because that is the main reason why the California condors reduced in number in the first place. So moving on, I'll take another 5 to 7 minutes if that is okay. So I just wanted to talk to you about One Health. So when we talk about One Health, earlier what used to happen was that human health, animal health, and environment health was considered as separate entities. However, now it is considered as one and it is looked at as one. So when we look at One Health, so first is human health. So when we look at human health, this is an article which was published, a very wonderful paper by Professor E.L. Frank, who's a socioeconomist. And over here, he has showed that the number of fecal coliform has increased in India after the sorry after the decline of vultures. So they have increased to a great effect. They have increased by nearly 10 times. Then the second important point is that there has been an increase in the number of rabies cases. You can see this dark black line which has just shot up after the report of decline in vultures. And the third aspect, which is very alarming, is that there has been an increase in the number of human deaths, which are coinciding with the number of or the period of decline in vultures. So there has been an effective size of 0.48 deaths per 1,000 human beings, which implies more than 1 lakh death in a year. For 5 years, this means that 5 lakh human beings have died, and they have estimated the cost of this, which is around 69.4 billion US dollars per year. So that is the problem for humans. Then when we look at animal death, there is a spread of disease to domestic and wild animals. Because of the number of because of the decline of vultures, what has happened is more food is made available for dogs. And in one place in Rajasthan, where the vultures were present, 60 dogs were counted over there. However, after the decline of vultures, 1,200 dogs were counted. And these dogs are creating problems not only for human beings, not only for domestic animals, but as you can see, this is a nilgai. It's an antelope. It is one of the largest antelopes in India. And you can see that these feral dogs are attacking them. You can, if you go to social media, you will see the dogs, chasing snow leopards away from their kill and consuming those carcasses as well. So, plus I was in Jaipur in the month of January. Great Indian bustard, which is critically endangered. The florican, which is again a grassland bird. These dogs are just hunting them and killing their chicks and not allowing them to breed. So that is a very serious concern. I love dogs, but this is a very serious concern. And last but not the least is environmental health. So it is so this is a paper which was published in 2022. So it says that if the number of carcasses in India are left to rot in the environment, these are all cattle and buffalo carcasses. So there would be a 2.89 teragram carbon dioxide equivalent emission in the planet. So just to give you an idea, carbon dioxide equivalent is a whole, so all the greenhouse gases put together is considered as the carbon dioxide equivalent, and teragram carbon dioxide equivalent is 10 raised to 12 times carbon dioxide equivalent gas. So it will definitely cause climate change and heating up of the temperature. So looking at all the whole thing that is going on, I just have an appeal to make to all of you, is a call to action. For millions of years, vultures have been helping humanity very, very silently. And we did not know what they used to do until they stopped doing it. And for centuries, these vultures have helped our Zoroastrian community as well. Now they are in need of our help. Not only the Zoroastrian community, but I think each and every human being on the planet owes their life and the life of their children and grandchildren and the future generation as well. So here's what I think each and everyone can do. Number one is join the fight against unsafe NSAIDs. Make sure that the ban is in place and the ban is implemented. Number two, influence policy. So now Indian government has agreed to the proposal of the Convention of Migratory Species, which states that any drug which is issued for veterinary use will first be tested for safety in vultures and then only it will be licensed. But that has not yet been implemented. So that is a problem and we need to step on that and get that in place. Number three is try and help find an advocate for alternate therapies. So I have a friend, a mentor who is an Ayurvedic doctor, and what he has communicated to me is in human medicine, the majority of the people that they see, around 70% of the people that they see in their clinic are taking some kind of painkiller or the other. And they have been able to shift the nearly 70% of those people onto Ayurvedic medicine, which don't harm the individuals also. Definitely, they will not harm the vultures as well. What we can also do is donate time, donate effort, donate money. I don't know what else can be done to the cause of vulture conservation. And last but not the least, what we can definitely do is help spread the word. The photograph on the left is of me and Dr. Kazveen, my friend and senior. We had this standing presentation for Zoroastrian community. We had around 9 of these standees that were made. Went to at least 4 or 5 places in Mumbai, and then they were translated into Tamil, they were translated into Marathi, and they were spread in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra as well. The picture on the right that you see is school children joining hands to create a picture of a vulture. This is in Tamil Nadu by Bharati Dasan from the NGO called Arulagam. This is all that I wanted to share. This is just the acknowledgements. Penultimate slide. The Bombay Veterinary College, which it's my alma mater. I studied there, I taught there, I worked there. I've spent more than half my life in Bombay Veterinary College. The IVET, Cancer Vet, and the exotic. The North American Morbets Council, thank you so much for this opportunity to present this work and giving an ear to vultures. Thank you for your listening.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Percy Avari. Wonderful presentation. At least I learned a lot. It opened my eyes to so many things I never thought would be possible. Anyway, we open up for questions. Any questions, please go right ahead.
There are some questions. Write down the spelling of the posture of the vulture spreading their wings and basking in the sun, please. That's called sunning. Veera Rustamji, okay, so that's called sunning. Where are the vulture conservation centers in Pakistan is another question. So what I understand is that we are working with for SAVE. It's a consortium of people saving Asia's vultures from extinction. So WWF Pakistan is working over there. I have a friend who is working, Jamshed Chaudhary, and I don't know if I'm not sure exactly where they have the conservation breeding center, but there are some populations of vultures in Changamanga and stuff like that. But if you want, I'll type down my email ID. You can reach out to me and I will share the information with you. Yeah. And you can Google Saving Asia's Vultures from Extinction as well. You will get to the you will get information. Yeah. Sorry. So if you have any questions or if anybody else has questions.
I think somebody has an additional comment in chat.
There is a question which says, can we do some initiative with Bombay Parsi Panchayat to take steps towards conservation with the Indian government? Actually, there has been a proposal for that, but I think there is a lot of resistance from people in the community because the thought process is been predominantly to ensure that the the vultures consume the corpses of the Zoroastrians. But what I feel is that it should not be myopic in only that sense, but we should contribute to make sure that the vultures come back into the wild, and then that will also help the Zoroastrian community, is what I think. And another thing that needs to be looked at is that we are for certainly sure that the NACIDs, the toxic NACIDs have entered into the system of vultures from domestic animals, but there is a chance that it can also enter from human beings. So that is something that we need to be careful of. I hope I have answered that question. I heard that there are so many vultures in Tibet and Arunachal Pradesh. There is still chance to bring the population back. So yes, there are vultures present, but they are very few. There are a few thousand left now compared to the millions that were available. And not to be pessimistic, but I don't think that in my lifetime I will be able to see the millions of vultures coming back, simply because they are very slow breeders. So that is the problem. If there are any questions that I have left out, I'm sorry. I don't think so. Yeah. Any other questions? I'm happy to.
Yeah, Pridosh has a question. Go ahead, Pridosh.
Yeah.
This was the question I kind of asked before we started, and you mentioned that we can repeat it later in the question
Yes.
answer period about the transportation of
Embalming
of Parsi carcasses from North America to Bombay Dock. I know a couple of cases. I know what is done. I know what is required by the Canadian consulate over here in Vancouver. I also understand what the Indian government regulations are. But what I'm concerned is this embalming fluid, which theoretically retards the process of degradation. Does the consumption of that, I understand it is could be in very small concentrations and quantities, but does that hurt the vultures at all? And if it does, then as good Jarthastis, should we be doing this or not worry about sending the body?
Okay, I'll try and throw some light on that. So in some of the references that I was going through, I think there were cases earlier uh, where embalming was performed, even in Persia. So I'm not so sure about it, but that was considered number one. Second thing, to answer your question, whether that kind of a process will hamper or be detrimental to the vultures, probably yes, because if it contains arsenic and other things, then it will most certainly be toxic to vultures as well. Uh, and just to digress from the topic, but vultures are wonderful. Uh, they have a wonderful digestive system. They can digest any kind of virus or bacteria, or most of them. They can even digest anthrax, and they can digest Clostridia and other things as well. But NSAIDs and other, human uh, pharmaceuticals are detrimental to them. However, coming back to your question, if embalming is carried out and it is brought to the Mumbai Dokma and it is laid over there, at this point of time, I don't think there are any vultures that are consuming those corpses. So they are just being taken care of by the solar concentrators. So at this point of time, I can fairly say that uh, it would not harm vultures, because unfortunately there are no vultures at the Dungarwadi.
Thank you. Understandable. I in 1994 to 1996, I had ulcerative colitis and I was on NSAIDs. That
Yeah,
was prescribed. Some of it was in very high dosage, to the point that finally in 96, I have to get myself operated and remove my complete colon, which was in a sense a good thing that I did not have to take that harmful medication anymore. I stopped the NSAIDs, and I'm hoping that over time it kind of gets out of my system by constant use. And I'm fortunate that after the doctor gave me 5 years to live, it has been 28 years so far.
that's good.
So there is a good part of information and news that should encourage you to do these wonderful things that you are doing. Please continue and help us understand better and better. Thank you.
Thank you. So there is a question, is it one specific vulture or any vultures can be useful to or helpful to Zoroastrians? Specific breed of vultures? So basically the thing is that the vultures which are consuming the corpses have predominantly been the gyp species of vultures. So there are five gyp species of vultures that are found in India. As I mentioned, three are endemic. One is the white-backed vulture, the second is long-billed, the third is slender-billed vulture. There are two which are migratory. So the Himalayan griffins, they are larger birds. So the earlier vultures that I mentioned, they are around 4.5 to 5 kilograms, whereas the Himalayan griffins are more than 10 kilograms. And the picture of the bird that you are seeing sitting next to me, or rather than allowing me to sit next to it, is the photograph of a Himalayan griffin, which we had rescued in the Bombay SPCA. We treated it and we released it back into the environment. So the Himalayan and the Eurasian griffin, these are migratory species. So they come to India in the winter and they go back, if they are alive, they go back to where they came from. So that is what it is. I hope I answered your question. Any other questions, please? I would be happy to answer. No questions. Okay.
Okay.
So shall I stop sharing my screen, sir?
Yes, please. Yes, please. And thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. And thank you everyone for participating. It was a fantastic discussion and presentation. So if you have any other topics that you would like to see discussed, please contact any one of us at the NAMC, or Kobad is in charge, so everybody knows Kobad. And check out our next discussion group on our website at namc.org. And please also check out our upcoming events, lectures, courses, etc. on our website. And thank you for supporting NAMC.
Yeah. So